My name's Susie Bower. I'm the federal candidate for the seat of Lyons in the upcoming election.
Why did you enter politics?
I'm not there yet, but I did become a councillor at Meander Valley Council in 2018. I stood and was elected there and spent 3 years at Meander Valley Council before I got pre-selected for the federal seat last time. So when that happened, I then resigned from the council just so that there were no conflicts of interest. So my whole reason for getting into that area was my community. I'm a fifth generation from Meander Valley. So born in Chudley, spent first 3 years there. And then we moved into town, which was Deloraine, and then grew up in Deloraine. And then when it was time to go to uni, I went to Hobart to go to uni. And then I left the state, came back, and then been back now for 20 years, and I live in Westbury. So I pretty much have moved 15-minute increments from where I was actually born. But so community is very special to me. I have a community and economic development background, so my professional career has also been involved with community and making sure that communities are heard, especially in Lyons. We have so many small communities. We have a few that are getting a bit larger now, like when you look at Southern Lyons, you've got Sorell and Brighton, New Norfolk even, they're starting to get quite large communities, but they still have that country feel about them, and that's why people love living there. And all over Lyons we have about 80 small communities, and that's hard to get your voice heard when you're a small community, and every community is different. So I've made a really big effort to make sure I get to every community to know what their aspirations are and then how I can help them achieve those aspirations.
What are the most important values to you?
My values are around honesty, integrity. They're very key. Relationships building as well. So I think when you build a relationship with someone, whether it's in the business world or anywhere, you do what you say you're going to do. That's really important for me, because that actually then builds respect, builds in your personal brand as well, that people know that if they ask you to do something, you'll deliver it. I'm also a big believer in under promise, over deliver. Don't set expectations too high, because life gets in the way. Things don't always pan out how you think they're going to pan out. So we always are trying to do our best, whatever we're trying to achieve, but we need to be realistic sometimes about what we can achieve as well.
What are some of the key issues for you and the Lyons electorate?
Yeah, so there's, as I said, every community is a little bit different. So some things will be more important in some communities than other. But generally speaking, there are some core themes across all of Lyons, and that is around GP access. So making sure that we have enough GPs in our rural and regional areas. So that's a really key one. As we know, that's a bit of a problem all around Australia. There's not a lot of GPs now going into the specialisation of becoming a GP. So we have to address it right back at that starting point and start working forwards. I think the stats were something like 10 years ago, 50% of doctors were going into the specialisation of being a GP. That's now down to around 12 to 13%. So we've just got to, this is where we've got to start looking at that, because that's what's coming through. We're not getting enough GPs coming through the profession. So that's where we'll be looking and trying to improve things. The other one is digital connectivity. I don't know if you've driven in Lyons, but there's a lot of places in Lyons where it drops out. You don't get mobile coverage at all. Even NBN coverage can be a bit dodgy sometimes. Like even in Sorell, for example, I was talking to people in Sorell and they've got to have Starlink. They're only 15 minutes from Hobart. You'd think they'd be really super connected there and have it really fast NBN service, but no. Again, that's what you get by going and talking to communities. Obviously down the Tasman area from Port Arthur right up to Sorell, that's a real issue, especially for businesses as well, because everything now relies on, small business relies on technology and connectivity. And if you have got an EFTPOS machine and you can't actually make a transaction, you can't actually run a business. All of these, and then of course Northern Lyons doesn't escape it either. So Wilmot have big connection issues as well. So there's a bit of work to be done. Our topography isn't always great, so we don't get those line of sights from towers, so we need to be looking at how we can connect our community better, particularly in the area of Lyons. Aged care is another one. So my parents are both pensioners and they are on aged care packages, so I very much understand where people are coming from in regards to when they talk to me about aged care, but in particular about ageing at home and ageing in their community. So being able to not have to move to a nursing home outside of where they feel comfortable and where in many cases they've spent 50 or 60 years of their life and they want to age in that community, where their friends are and where their other connections are. So that's very important to me as well. And then if we go to the other spectrum, youth. So what are the opportunities for young people? And again, my current role as CEO of BBAMZ, it's around how can we bring industry and private investment into this state to allow for opportunities for young people so that they can actually have high earning jobs right here in Tasmania and not have to leave. Because we do have a bit of a brain drain happening in Tassie. Some of our young and brightest do tend to leave the state. So what I really want to concentrate on is how do we get opportunities here? So if they want to leave, hey, that's their prerogative, but it's a choice rather than a have to.
What do you think makes a good politician?
I think for this one, not only do you need to listen to people, the old saying, we have 2 ears and 1 mouth for a reason. So we need to listen, but then I think it goes a little bit deeper than that too, in terms of actually understanding what they're saying. And from my perspective, I want to see more people that have got real life experience going into politics, because not only can they listen, but they actually understand where that person's coming from because they've experienced it themselves or one of their family members. All of these things are happening. When someone talks to me about the cost of living, not only do I listen to that, but I can understand it because I myself have had to work 2 jobs just to make ends meet. I got up at 4 o'clock in the morning and delivered newspapers as a side gig because I wasn't quite sure if I'd be able to pay my rent and the bills that were coming due. So I understand where they're coming from. So it's not just listening and saying, yep, oh yeah, I get that. No, I actually understand because I've experienced it. And I think when you can experience something and take that to that next level and then look at solution bases of what you can do to help that, and even what you did to get out of that circumstance. And sometimes it might be working 3 jobs, which I've done before as well. But that level of understanding I think is critical, because that's where some of then the best solutions will come from. But also making sure that you're including people in that solution base, because quite often if you ask someone, they'll know what they need to do or what community needs to do. And I've said this quite often, that sometimes government just need to get out of the way. We just need to facilitate. So communities will give you the solutions, then they need the support from government to implement those solutions, but government doesn't need to control it. They just need to let community come up and run themselves.
What sort of trends do you see in politics happening?
I think social media is still a really big issue. It's a great way to get information out and to let people know what's happening. But it's also, how do people know how to trust that information as well? And so that I think they're caught a little bit in, and we were talking about AI before, and with all of that generation, someone like me speaking right now, I could be an AI, I could be a fabricated AI person. You don't know whether, so how do you validate what information is correct and what's not? I think that's a real struggle for society at the moment as we move forward. Cost of living is the biggest concern coming into this election, whether you're renting, whether you've got a mortgage, the cost of fuel, the cost of groceries, the cost of energy. All of these things are going to be really key concerns.
Why are you the best candidate for Lyons?
Yeah, so I think I touched on it a little bit before. It's because I've got life experience. I have come right through my career having all different sort of life experiences. I've worked in higher education, I've worked in local government, I've worked in industry and advanced manufacturing, I've worked in tourism, being the Blue Derby mountain bike trails project manager right from the inception of that idea through to the first 80 kilometres. I've worked in a variety of industries. The Royal Flying Doctors Service that actually have put out a primary healthcare model, I actually co-designed that model. So I've got a really great breadth, I think, of experience across a whole range of areas that I can bring to politics. And I think we have too many career politicians right now. It'd be really good to have some real people coming into politics that actually understand, not just listen, but understand people's issues and look at solutions for them.
What's your favourite part of the Meander Valley?
I did say this was the most political question you asked me. It's because I was like, born Chudley, grew up in Deloraine and now live in Westbury. The Western Tiers. So the Western Tiers is my favourite place in the Meander Valley. It's visible from wherever you are in the Meander Valley. But when I was actually growing up in Deloraine, our lounge room, we had an unimpeded view of the Western Tiers. So I did all my homework in my lounge room looking at that view. I wished I could draw, but I can't, because I thought that would be so magnificent. I had this great masterpiece in front of me and all I could do was look at it. But it gave me I don't know, a sense of calm. And I always do that now. I do remember 5 years ago was the last time I travelled overseas. And when I came heading back home from the Launceston airport and I looked up at the Western Tiers and I went, yeah, I'm home. And even though where I'd been and what I'd seen was so magnificent, there's nothing like being home and seeing that as well.
Yeah.